Welcome back to our channel. My name's Natalie.
I'm Erika, and this is Drunken True Crime.
For those of you that are new, once a week we are going to talk about a true crime case. Erika and I will switch off who is talking about it. This week I'm going to be the one presenting. And we try to always pick a case that somehow speaks to us, hopefully one that the other one doesn't know too much about, so we can hopefully educate the other person as well as educate you guys. With that being said, we also have a few disclaimers. On this channel we will be talking about, obviously, true crime. We'll have a different cocktail every single week. So this week we have Greyhound, so cheers.
Cheers.
We will link the recipes down below, or we'll just write out the recipes because they're typically pretty simple. We also cuss a lot, so we will be our true selves on here. One of the things that we do like to do when we talk about true crime is try to bring some like humor, laughter, lightness to it. It's not us making fun of the victims by any means. Most of the time it's us making fun of ourselves.
Yes.
But again, we couldn't get through a lot of these crimes without it. So that's just us. Again, if you don't like it, I would move right along.
Show yourself the door.
Yes, and that's okay because we're not going to be everyone's cup of tea.
No.
And we're okay with that.
Okay, last disclaimer here, folks. The information provided by us in this video is for educational purposes. All information in this video is provided in good faith. The views expressed are our own personal opinions, and the details we provide are all alleged, and individuals are innocent until proven guilty in the court of law.
So this week we're going to be talking about the Cooper Harris case. So for those of you who don't know about this case, it's also known as the hot car case, and it happened in Atlanta, Georgia.
I don't know anything about this case, so I'm kind of excited.
So that is exciting, and I think there's going to be a lot of back and forth between you and I, because honestly, I don't know where I land either. So the reason why I chose this case and why I think it's so fascinating is because it's the first case ever where a parent left a child in the car and they were charged with murder. Malice murder. So he did it intentionally.
Okay.
Is what they said. Again, I don't know where I land. How we're going to organize this week is I'm going to go just through the timeline of what happened, just the facts. And then I'm going to go through why I think he's guilty. Then I'm going to go through why I think he's innocent. And then we're going to talk about it because I flip back and forth.
Because you go back and forth with it. Okay.
It is a really hard case in my opinion, but also what makes it interesting and what made me drawn to it this week. Okay, so on your screen you're hopefully looking at a picture of Leanna Taylor and Justin Ross Harris. So Justin goes by his middle name Ross, so from here on out I'm just going to call him Ross because that's what he goes by, and that's if you research this case at all, it's normally Ross. Which
the worst character in Friends,
I was going to say, insert every Friends joke that has been embedded in my brain for the last how many years. Ross would be described by his friends as being like quirky, dorky, almost like socially inept in a way. And that comes into play a little bit later as we go through the case. Ross and Leanna, they actually met on a blind date. And his friends said that after the blind date that he told them that he was going to marry that girl.
Aww.
Yeah, and so fast forward to 2006, he was absolutely right. They got married. In 2012, Ross actually attended the University of Alabama and graduated with his bachelor's degree. So that's where Erika went to school.
Wait, he graduated the same year I graduated my bachelor's.
Yes, I know.
Interesting.
I know. So he is older.
Hey, we're not older.
No, he is older than us. Is what I'm saying.
Oh, okay.
So you graduated the same year, but he is older than us. So he got a little bit later start. From there, he actually secured a job with Home Depot's corporate office, and he was a web developer for them. So they actually moved to Atlanta, Georgia. That all happened, again, in 2006 they got married. 2012 he graduated from the University of Alabama, and in that same year they moved to Atlanta. Also in 2012 they gave birth to their first child just a few months after they moved to Atlanta. So on August 2nd of 2012, Leanna gave birth to Cooper Harris. They were extremely excited about this, extremely excited to bring a little boy into this world, and just over the moon. So from the outside looking in, they look like the perfect family, but what do we know here, Erika?
There is no such thing as a perfect family.
Oh, that's good. So now we're going to go through the details of what actually happened the day that Cooper Harris died. Okay, so on June 18th of 2014, family got up together. So it was Ross and Cooper and Leanna. Around 8:30, Cooper and Ross leave, and this is pretty normal. So Ross normally takes Cooper to daycare because it's just like less than a mile, or it's 2 miles from his work, but really, really close. So it's actually the Home Depot's corporate headquarters, like daycare for. They call it the Little Apron Academy because, you know, Home Depot has the apron. Yeah, I thought that was cute. At approximately 8:30, they leave the house and they go to Chick-fil-A. So there's actually surveillance footage of Cooper and Ross in the Chick-fil-A, and both are very, you know, lively, awake, which is really important. And they actually stay there and they eat their breakfast. So, you know, yeah, just a little fun, like, father-daughter breakfast or father-son breakfast before they start their day. Then at about 8:55, and the time frames differ depending on what you're looking at, but around this time frame, so around 8:55, 9:15, they get into the car. So Ross puts Cooper in his rear-facing car seat in the middle seat of their Hyundai Tucson. He buckles him in, he gets into the car, and he starts driving. He should be driving to the daycare, but unfortunately, he drives straight to work. He gets into the Home Depot parking lot, parks, and goes into work, leaving Cooper in the car. We're talking June in Atlanta, Georgia. So for those of you who are not
fucking hot
from the South, it gets extremely, extremely hot in the South, and it's
the inferno of hell.
Yes, it is so humid. This is around 9:15. Ross goes into work, and Cooper is left in the car. So we're going to go through what happens next pretty quickly, and then we'll break down the details after that. So then around lunchtime, him and his friends, they go out to lunch pretty regularly. So there's only 2 people. So there's 3 of them that go to lunch. Only 2 of them can drive because of the amount of people they can fit in their car. And so it's 50-50 which car they took. Unfortunately, they did not take Ross's car this time. They took the other guys. But then after lunch, he does go back to his car to put light bulbs in the front seat. And yes, we will get into all of that. Yeah.
The front seat?
The front, yeah. Then at approximately 4 o'clock, he went to go leave work because he was going to go meet a friend for a movie. They were going to go see 21 Jump Street.
Okay.
Or 22 Jump Street, I think, actually.
Oh, okay.
Was the second one, yeah. So he left work around 4 o'clock, actually gets out to his car, or starts packing up for work around 4 o'clock, actually gets out to his car around 4:15, gets in the car, drives to the movie theater. About a mile into the car drive, he has this oh shit moment, frantically realizing that he's left his kid in the car. So he pulls into a shopping center, parks quickly, frantically gets out, rips the car door open, rips the back door open, starts screaming like hysterically, pulls the kid out, puts him on the ground, and, you know, starts rendering aid to him. So all this screaming and all this commotion obviously starts to draw a crowd. And so several people are trying to help give aid to Cooper while other people are calling 911 to get police there. And to the police's defense, like, they got there pretty quickly. But Cooper had already been in a hot car for 7 hours. It was 88 degrees outside that day, which means it's approximately 125 degrees in the car. I mean, it's just stifling hot. Coroners believe that Cooper was dead by lunchtime. So he was dead, but they were still trying to render aid, because until the paramedics get there, you never want to lose hope. Again, the police and paramedics get there fairly quickly, but at 4:58 p.m., Cooper is officially pronounced dead.
That's strong.
A little strong. So originally when police rolled up to the scene, they're thinking it's just a really tragic accident. Again, this happens on average to 38 kids a year, and it's just a really, really tragic thing that happens from time to time. So police just, again, thought it was an accident. However, when they rolled up to the scene, that's when almost immediately they started to feel that things were just off with Ross. This is where we're going to get into, or start getting into, why I think he's guilty, and go through the diatribe and all the things that I think he's guilty. But just to be known, it was the police officers and the bystanders. This is where all the suspicion began, and he was actually arrested that night.
Wow.
So
okay.
There was no time in between. Like, from the get-go, they were like, yeah, this dude did this intentionally. But I do want to go through how we went from this is just a tragic accident, this was not intentional, to this guy's locked up and convicted of malice murder. The first thing that I find strange or suspicious is the way that he acted at the crime scene. And disclaimer, because this is again where I start going back and forth, there's no specific way that you should act when something traumatic happens to you. So like I can't tell you exactly how to act.
Like, I don't know how I would act in that situation either.
Yeah.
There's no one right way to act.
Exactly. So it's really hard to sit here and judge like how one acts, because like if that happened to anyone that I loved, again, I have no idea how I would act. Like, are you in shock? Are you around screaming? Are you like what?
Are you just completely silent?
Yeah, exactly. So that's my first disclaimer on this and how I go back and forth. I'm just going to point out what I think is kind of strange though with how he acted at the crime scene. But again, take it with a grain of salt, because there's no right way to act when something this traumatic happens to you. First thing that happened that I thought was kind of strange is that when the police first arrived, Ross was on the phone. The police officers went up and they asked him to get off the phone, and he puts his hand up and goes like this to like the police officer and is like, shh, like, I'm on the phone. And then they were like, okay. And then another, like the lead detective, or I think one of the higher up detectives, comes up and says, sir, I'm gonna need you to get off the phone. And he goes, fuck you. And then starts becoming very like combative with the police officers, just yelling, screaming, kind of going crazy. Again, he could be in shock. He could be going through just a roller coaster of emotions. But why I found it strange is that the people who are trying to help you and help you through the situation, he's getting really angry at. What do you think about that?
I mean, when you first described his personality, he's quirky and he doesn't really have a sense of how to react in social situations. Mm-hmm. So he strikes me as a person that has to think about one thing at a time, as most men do. Yeah. So he's talking on the phone. He's already in a stressful situation, and he's already probably heartbroken. Yeah. Talking on the phone to his apparent, we're thinking it's his wife.
I think it was his wife, yeah.
And so he's trying to be there for her, and then you have people coming at you, like, wanting to ask questions while you're trying to comfort your wife in the same time. And that will become overwhelming for anyone during, like, a very stressful situation, to me. Yeah. That's how I look at it. I don't think it's necessarily weird, because granted, they're trying to help, but also they're putting more stress on him.
Yeah, that's why, again, where I go back and forth on this. Like, I just don't know in this instance. But the other thing, so that's not the only thing, though, at the crime scene. So the other thing is that, and I go back and forth on this one, so I'm just a teeter-totter today. So before the police got there, Ross pulls Cooper out and starts giving him CPR. And then the bystanders, like, immediately, because he's screaming and, you know, obviously, is like what just happened. It's very traumatic, and he's screaming. And so bystanders come and they try to help Cooper. So help give him CPR and stuff. During this time, before the police officers or the paramedics get there, Ross leaves Cooper's side and just walks away. And these people are left to continue giving him CPR. Now, playing devil's advocate, maybe Ross just knew he was dead and like gave up all hope. But I just can't imagine just
there's
losing,
a sense
like,
of guilt.
Yeah, but, like, I can't imagine just not trying just in case there was some little hope.
That maybe he figured that these bystanders are going to take care of him. I need to, like, he might have a sense of guilt there.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sure he has guilt. But don't get me wrong. But why does guilt lead you to walk away from your kid? Like, even if he thought they maybe, let's say there was a doctor there, which not recorded by any means. Hypothetically, let's say there was a doctor there, and he was like, okay, well, he can help him better. You would still, like, stay around, right? You wouldn't just go walk off and go walk the parking lot, right?
I don't know. I don't know how I would act in that situation.
I think that's strange. Like, I think I would stay close by.
I don't find it, for that point, I don't find it abnormal. Yeah. I don't. I really don't. Yeah. That doesn't give me a red flag.
So, the number 2 thing, and I think this is where it gets a little harder for me, is this was their normal routine. So he, not always, but most of the time, he was the one that took Cooper to daycare because it was so close to his work. And then he lied about that in when he was being interrogated by police. He was like, and he couldn't even tell them who took Cooper to daycare the day before. Like, it just, you could, my sense was that he was, like, lying about this because he wanted to make it seem like it wasn't a normal routine for him. But the majority of the time, and you'll hear this from the daycare workers, it was him dropping off and the wife picking up. Again, a large number of hot car cases, so let's say, you know, when children are left in the car and die from heat stroke, it's because it's out of the parent's normal routine. There is a syndrome that, like, there's a real syndrome, like, gone around this. It's called forgotten child syndrome. It's where your perspective memory, so that's the memory that is responsible for making sure that things that are outside of your normal routine, that you actually do them. So it's where your perspective memory fails and your habit memory takes over. And your habit memory is just your day-to-day routines where you can almost go on autopilot.
Right. I mean, it's like, for example, it would be like when you drive to work and you forget how you get there because it's such, you're on autopilot when you're driving. It's like you just forget, oh, I did this already. I got to work, but I don't remember how I got to work. That's your habit memory. Yeah. And then the perspective memory is something that's out of the norm that you have to actually be present during that so you don't forget.
And so that's why dropping Cooper off should have been in his habit memory because he did it all the time.
Every day.
So that's where I think it's a little strange.
Do we know if he had like a big project that day or?
No, so we don't know the stress that he was under. Again, this kid's 22 months old. Like, he should be sleeping through the night, but no judgment here. Like, maybe he wasn't. Maybe they were tired. Like, I get all those things. Like, I get it, but like, if you're tired, that's when your habit memory takes over your perspective memory, right? And so that's why when this happens, a lot of times, it's because it's out of the norm. And it's the perspective memory just fails and the habit memory takes over. But this is his habit memory. So even if he was tired, even if he was stressed, any of those factors.
He should have still remembered that I need to drop off Cooper 2 blocks away from my work.
Right. He didn't even have, it would be autopilot for him. It would be his habit memory.
Yes. I mean, I agree with you on that aspect. I need to know more about the case to form a judgment. Nothing has sold me just yet.
Yeah. Okay. Well, then let's talk about this one. So, the Chick-fil-A, we have surveillance video where Cooper is very much awake, very much lively, talking to people. Ross was introducing him to people. Like, it's actually a really cute video. Is only a mile away from his work. So a lot of people were like, okay, well, what if Cooper fell asleep and he, you know, Ross forgot about him. He was quiet. He fell asleep. This is a mile away from his work. The child was 22 months old, was just very much awake at Chick-fil-A when they were leaving. I highly doubt, in my opinion, a 22-month-old who was very much awake.
Yeah.
And it's
would be
in the morning.
Noise.
Yeah, would be making noise, would be awake in the car. I mean, so there have been, the police officers did this route a few times. There have been some armchair detectives who have done this route, and the max amount of time that it takes is like 5 minutes, but on average, it's less than 2 minutes. Okay, so that's my third one. This is another one for me. So, and this is why I was so specific about the details of his car, is because he was only inches away from Cooper's head the entire time. So if you look at a 2011 Hyundai Tucson, and remember Cooper was in the middle seat, so if like Ross is sitting right here, Cooper is in the middle seat, rear facing, so their heads are only inches apart from each other.
Yeah, there's a lot of warning signs that like he knew Cooper was there.
Yeah, that's my thing, is like I think like he somehow should have like either seen him in his peripheral, I mean just like inches away. Like inches away.
With noise, him being awake.
Yeah. And I don't know. That just, I'm like, really?
It does give me pause. I'm not going to lie.
Okay. I'm getting Erika on my side just in time to turn her around. So this is another one that kind of gets me. This is where I think I really got like, oh, dude, what'd you do? What'd you do? He had a few reminders throughout the day. So he has a picture of Cooper on his desk, which if you look at it, like maybe sparks that, oh shit, I left my kid in the car. That didn't happen. He texts his wife about Cooper and asking like, so, and I think it was, quote, when are you going to pick my buddy up from daycare? Like, that wouldn't trigger that you didn't drop him off? Right? It's weird. Give me that. That's weird.
Yeah, it's weird. It's like, I don't know. What is the motive of texting his wife? Like, what is the if he, like, planned this whole thing out, maybe he's just really fucking dumb. Because, like, I mean,
fair.
If I don't have a motive here yet.
Yeah.
Like, that's what I'm trying to think.
Ooh, just wait.
But maybe if he did this, hear me out.
Yeah.
He did this on purpose. He's trying to cover it up. He's trying to cover it up by saying, I forgot him. I forgot that I didn't drop him off. That I just didn't.
I see.
I forgot all of this that happened. Yeah. So I'm going to do my regular every day. I'm going to text my wife. Yeah. When are you picking him up?
Okay. So we're starting to think he's guilty.
I'm just laying out the groundwork.
Okay.
I'm laying out, like, if he had a motive, this would be him covering it up.
Okay.
I don't like have any. I have red flags in my peripheral.
Okay.
I do have red flags, but I don't necessarily am swinging to he's guilty just yet.
I know, that's why this case is so interesting, right? It's hard. This case is really hard.
Because what if he's just really dumb?
Very fair point. And yeah.
Most men are. Just saying.
Cheers.
You are.
Cheers. So then another thing, talking about like reminders through the day, the last thing that gets me a little bit is that he went to his car at lunch and put something in the car.
Yeah, I remember you telling me that. Put light bulbs?
Yeah, so he had to pick up light bulbs or something for the home. And so he works at Home Depot, so like this isn't like a normal thing, but he just went and like stuck them in the car. Where his son was.
Dead son.
For fucking how many hours at this point?
Fucking
nothing.
You're a monster.
Like, no, okay, so we're guilty now. We're guilty.
He's not guilty, but I'm saying you're stupid. I don't claim that every parent that leaves their child like in the car is stupid.
No, by no means.
Because most of the time
They're distracted.
They're distracted. They got a lot on their minds. Most of the time, they do figure out that their child is in the car.
Yeah.
But you had several reminders.
That's what I'm saying. This is what gets me. That I'm like,
I just don't know. I don't know. Maybe you're dumb.
Okay. One last thing that I think is weird, but again, we're not going to talk too much about it because it's kind of the same thing as when he was at the crime scene. But his behavior during the interview process. Mm-hmm. So it's so objective. And so I don't want to put too much stock into it, but it just seemed, personally, this is my opinion, I think it was weird. He would go from being like really, really hysteric to being like, and then bawling again, like crazy. Like it's like I don't know. It was just like, it's almost like it was an act a little bit to me. So, two other things I just thought were weird, we'll go through this quickly, is Leanna's reaction to when she found out this happened, and then when she saw Ross in the interrogation room. So, she went to go pick up Cooper at daycare like normal, and the people at the daycare said he was never dropped off. And her immediate reaction, and there's multiple people who say this, multiple witnesses, it's like, Russ must have left him in the car. That's not what I think my first reaction would be. It was like, oh, maybe Russ picked him up early, or like maybe like let me call him. But it was like immediate, oh, Russ must have left him in the car.
Yeah, that's weird.
Suspicious. Okay.
That's weird.
So that's the first thing that I think is just like, Leanna, what? Two is that during the interrogation, they let her come in and they walked out, which is a very normal technique. Yeah, and then they'll videotape, the couple, or sometimes it's like a father or a parent figure. Mm-hmm. Anyways, they'll leave the room and let the family member or someone close to them come in and let them talk, but they're being videotaped the entire time, but they feel like they're in a secret zone where no one will hear anything. When Ross is being interrogated, they let Leanna come in. Again, this is normal practice. So Leanna comes in, and he's obviously distraught, upset. She comes in, and one of the very first things she does is say, and I quote, "Did you say too much?"
So they're in cahoots.
Right? So that's what leads you to believe, like,
They're in this together.
Did you want that? Like, did you both want this to happen? Like, what's going on? Just to recap, these are the things that I thought were, like, weird or suspicious. It's really hard for me to say that he's guilty because of these things, but I think it needs to be known. So 1 is the behavior at the crime scene. 2 is it was his normal routine. 3 was the distance from Chick-fil-A to his work. So less than a mile. It's 0.8 miles. I Googled it. Google Maps this bitch. It's 0.8 miles. Again, taking anywhere from 2 to 5 minutes. So Cooper would not have fallen asleep in this time.
No.
Most likely. Of course, there's always a chance that he could have, but like he was not asleep when he was put in the car, and we have surveillance showing that. And so he would have been awake for at least part of the trip. It's just a really quick time to forget about your child.
Right.
4 then is the proximity from Ross to Cooper in the car. 5 is all the reminders that he had throughout the day. So we're talking the picture frame, putting the light bulbs when he actually goes back to his car, texting his wife about Cooper throughout the day. Like, all these reminders about Cooper, and none of them triggered, holy shit, I left my kid in the car.
Yeah.
And then the 6th one is the behavior in the interview. There are a few things that the prosecution and the police officers brought up in the case, and it provided motive and did all these things, but I don't think that it played a role in this case. Like, I don't think that's why he was like, oh, I need to murder my son. So there's a few things I want to go through really quickly. And the first one is, if you've researched this case or heard about this case, you'll often hear about this Reddit childless community that Ross visited pretty frequently. And so if you look at the name, it sounds pretty crappy, right? Childless community. So it sounds bad at me. It sounds like it's someone who wants to be childless. I'm just gonna like debunk that right here. It's because that's not what this forum was about. It was more about people who were wanting children and couldn't have children. The second one is the Google searches. So if you research this case, you'll quite often hear that he researched hot car deaths or something of that nature. And again, this is very much over dramatized. It's not the case. So he was either, now there's varying reports, but he either clicked on a link in Reddit or he was sent a link about a hot car case. It's a video through YouTube. And to be fair, this was a trending video during the time. I watched it during this exact time, and it's the one of the vet like sitting in the car and talking about, it's about dogs, like animals, how you can't leave animals in the car. So it was really, really popular during this time, but it's not that he went into Google and searched it, it's he clicked a link. So we're just going to debunk that real quick too. The third one is the smell of decomp in the car. So the lead detective in the case said that when he pulled up, and mind you, he pulled up an hour later after the car door had been open for this entire hour, an hour later, stuck his head in the car and said that he smelled decomp. And he doesn't understand how, when Ross got into the car after work, how he didn't smell this god-awful smell of decomp. But, again, it's 88 degrees outside, 125 in the car. You would think that you would, like, the body would start to break down, right?
Yeah.
So when I first heard this, I was like, dude's guilty, you're right. Like, no. But then I listened to testimony from the medical examiner and other doctors and medical professionals, and they all say there's no way that Cooper's body would have started decomposing at that point, even in that heat, because what makes that smell, that god-awful smell of decomposition, is bacteria, and the bacteria is a breakdown of body fat, and Cooper didn't have enough body fat for that to have happened in that short of a time. Kiboshing that theory too. Okay, so this is where motive comes into play. I think this is why he was found guilty, but I don't think it's why he should have been found guilty. Still don't know if he should have been found guilty. Still on the fence about that, but this is what I think led to the guilty verdict. Once the cops started investigating him, it came out that he, on that day that Cooper died, he was sexting with 6 different women.
Gross.
Oh, just wait. One of which was 15 years old.
Gross.
Creeper. So that's not in debate that he's a fucking creep. But he was sexting with all these women. He had met sex workers. He's sending pictures of his genitalia to women.
Gross.
Women that are children that are 15 years old, asking for ones in return. Again, he's married, he has a son. So one of the things, though, that prosecutors really hung on to and kept bringing up during the trial is something that he said to one of these women. He said, I love my son and all, but we both need escapes. And so I think, one, that he is a creepazoid. Like, he's a creep. And he is a shitty husband, okay? But I don't think just because he was sexting other women or having sex with other women would lead him to kill his child. And in the text that I just read, I don't think that escape means murder my child. I think escape means I need to blow off some steam, or in his case,
affairs.
Yeah, have affairs. Like, I don't think, like, that to me doesn't translate necessarily to, how do you go from just being like a creep and like a shitty husband to I'm gonna murder my child to get through that? Like,
you don't.
I don't know. Like, but that's the motive that the prosecution put out, is that he wanted to not be tied down to this marriage, and he felt that Cooper was tying him down to this marriage, and so he had to get rid of Cooper. He's a creep, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah, shitty
He's
husband.
He's sexting everyone.
Yeah, but does that make him a murderer? No. And that, to me, like, that motive was pretty weak, but, you know, to a lot of people, it wasn't. And then, so this is why this case is so interesting, is because, like, half the people think he did it and half the people think he didn't. So I just want to recap things that I think that were brought up in the trial that played a role, or should have played a role, in whether he was convicted or not. And again, it was the childless form. We already debunked that. Like, right. It really wasn't about him not wanting kids. That's not what this forum was about. 2 was the Google searches. Again, he did not Google search, like, leaving my kid in a hot car. No, he watched that video of a vet. So the 3rd time is the smell of decomp in the car. We've had multiple medical professionals, including the medical examiner, saying that this smell would not have occurred at this point in time with Cooper's small body. And then the 4th one is the sexting. Yes, it makes him a creep. Yes, it makes him an asshole. Yes, it makes him a shitty husband. But does that make him a murderer?
Not necessarily.
Yeah, and that's a question. Okay, so now we want to go through some of the reasons why I think he might be innocent. So the first thing is that there were no signs previously that Ross wanted to be out of his family life or to stop being a father. It's really hard for me to go from being a really loving, doting father to killing your child in such a terrible way. Like, his wife hadn't found out about the cheating. Like, why not just keep going on with your life and with your mischievous ways? Even though how disgusting they are, it just doesn't, it's hard for me to make that leap. The second, this is one that really makes me feel like, okay, maybe he really is innocent, is that his wife stood by his side the entire time. From the very beginning said he might be forgetful and he's responsible for Cooper's death, but it wasn't intentional. He did not do this on purpose. This poor woman, she filed for divorce in 2016. So 2 months before he was actually supposed to go on trial, they got divorced. Wow. And she, even in this trial where she got dragged through the mud and humiliated and had to listen to the testimony of the women that he slept with, and just so everyone knew that she had been cheated on and lied to, and she was made to look like this fool, she still stood by him and said, yeah, he's a crappy husband. Yeah, I will be okay if I never see him again in my life. But I don't think that he murdered our son. And that stuck to me, I think, Carter. And still to this day, she still stands by that years and years later. And then the third one is, I think that the verdict was based on character.
Not
and I
evidence.
think not evidence. And I think it was a character assassination. I think the fact that he was sexting a 15-year-old and doing those things played a huge part in the jury's mind, and I don't think that correlates to him killing his child. To recap that, no previous red flags, in my opinion, before this. Leanna stood by his side even though she had all the reasons not to.
Right.
And then 3, I really do think it was based on character and not on evidence. With that being said, what do you guys think below? I'm kind of on the fence. We're about to tell you what we think, but we want you to tell us what you think first. Again, this case is very controversial. But Erika, I'll let you go first.
I don't think he had malintent. There's not enough evidence to prove that he did.
Yeah.
In my opinion.
Yeah. No, I agree. I don't think
he had any malicious intent to kill his son.
Yeah, I don't think he did it intentionally. The things that hang me up the most is that there were reminders throughout the day. Mm-hmm. So, at one point, did he realize what happened and he was already dead? Maybe when he went to lunch, he realized he was already dead and now he had to cover it up. I could see that, but I don't think from the get-go it was intentional. Ultimately, in December of 2016, he did get convicted of malice murder. This was the first case ever where a parent who had left their child in a hot car was convicted of this, meaning that he did this intentionally. So he was sentenced to life in prison without parole plus 32 years. But that is the case of Cooper Harris, and it's, again, very controversial. We're still kind of on the fence. I keep going back and forth the more I hear about it, but we want to know, what do you guys think? So please comment below if you like this. Please give us a thumbs up. Always subscribe. If you hate us, maybe comment and tell us how much you hate us, because that's fun.
Be happy, be healthy, and be a bitch. You stay alive.
Cheers. Cheers.
Hashtag Slytherin.
Welcome back to our... Oh my God. Hear about this, like, child. Okay.
Get a drink.
Oh, shit. Tits McGee.
Bitch is crazy.
Dick.
Depending on the day with me and who I want to fuck with.
I'm the whole piece, bitch. Next drink stronger.